이 회의가 전 세계로 이렇게 실시간으로 방영이 되기 때문에
So this conference
아까
is aired
개회사나
across the
마찬가지로
world,
제가
real time
영어로
through the broadcasting
발표를 하겠다는
system. So
말씀을
as
드립니다.
I did in the
I think it's
opening
very
remarks, I'm going
unfortunate
to
for
speak
me
English.
to deliver presentation
제가
at
오늘
a sleepy
발표를
time after
굉장히
lunch.
점심 후에 노곤한 시간에
okay.
전달을 드리게 되어서 굉장히
Do
안타깝네요.
we have a slide? Okay.
지금 제
yeah.
발표를 위한 슬라이드를
The
준비했습니다.
title of talk is How to Achieve
오늘의
Growth with Equity.
발표의
Okay.
제목은 어떻게 하면
As we all know, the
성장을
growth and
성취하는가,
equity
성취하는 방법에
are
대한
the two
것입니다.
priority
성장과
objectives
형평성이라는 것은 사실
of
공공
public
정책에서
policies.
두 가지 중요한 우선순위가
In the
되는
past,
문제입니다.
economic
과거를 보면
policies
경제
tend to
정책이라는
focus on
것은
growth only,
주로 성장에만
while
치중합니다.
welfare
한편
policies
복지 정책은
emphasized equity.
형평성을 중시하고
But this
있습니다.
tendency
하지만 이러한
has
경향이
changed recently.
최근에 바뀌었습니다.
The concept of inclusive growth
포용적 성장이라는
emphasizes
개념,
economic
이해되는데요.
growth
그런 개념은
that raises
경제
standard of living
성장을
for
통해서
broad
광범위한
segments
인구의
of our
삶의 질을
population,
높이는 것을
while the
목표로
concept
하는
of a
반면
sustainable
지속
welfare
가능한
state
복지국가라는
focuses
개념을
on
통해서
financial sustainability
다양한 복지
of
프로그램에
various
있어서의
social
재정적
welfare
지속 가능성에
programs.
중점을 두고
The recent
있습니다.
COVID-19
최근에
pandemic
코로나
has
팬데믹으로 인해서
resulted in not only a serious setback in
경제
economic
성장에서
growth,
심각한 차질을
but
빚을
also
뿐만
a
아니라
deterioration in income
저희
distribution.
소득 분배의
Thus, policy
악화도
prescriptions
일으켰습니다.
for the
따라서
post-COVID-19
코로나 시대 이후 포스트
era
코로나
should
시대의
contain
정책
ways
처방이란
to achieve growth with
형평성과
equity,
함께 성장을
which is the
달성하는
theme of my
방법이 포함되어야 될 것입니다.
presentation
이것은 제
today.
발표의
In
주제이기도 합니다.
suggesting policy prescriptions for growth with equity,
형평성이 있는
I will
성장을
draw
위한
lessons
정책적
heavily
처방을
from the
제시함에
Korean
있어서
experience
제가 한국
in
경험을
this
통해서 얻은
area.
교훈을 여러분과 공유해 드리겠습니다.
Okay. In the first part of this lecture, I will show you global trends in economic growth as well as income distribution. Then I will also review some debates on so-called Kuznets curve as well as the impact of COVID-19. The second part of this lecture, I will review 7 policy options for the purpose of achieving growth with equity. The first of my presentation is the historical trends in growth and equity. This is the cover of my recent book in Korean titled The Age of Balance, New Economic and Welfare Paradigms in the Post-COVID-19 Era. This graph shows the long-term trend of GDP per capita in England from 1270 to 2000. The most striking observation is that GDP per capita in England has remained virtually stagnant before the Industrial Revolution and has increased at an accelerating speed after the post-industrial revolution in the late 18th century. This graph shows a long-term trend of GDP per capita for other countries such as the United States, Austria, France, South Korea, Argentina, and Indonesia. As in the case of UK, sudden jump in growth rate has been a direct result of industrialization in each country. Thus, we can conclude that Industrial Revolution has been the game changer in economic growth for all the industrialized countries. The countries who participated in the Industrial Revolution process joined the group of advanced countries, while the country who led the Industrial Revolution process became the superpower in the international arena.
세계 정치의 초강대국으로서 자리 잡게 되었습니다.
This graph shows global trend in income distribution
일단 소득
during the
분포의
20-year
세계
period
분포를
from
보여줍니다. 20년 동안의
1988 to 2008, compiled
compiled
by Branko Milanovic, economist at the Columbia University. Because it looks like an elephant, it's often called elephant curve of global inequality. This graph clearly shows economic growth rate was fast, but inequality increased during this period. The C group over here is the happiest one who enjoyed highest level of income with a fast growth rate. The super rich in developed countries belongs to this group. This group is often called global plutocrat. The B group here is the low middle income class in developed countries whose income stagnated during this period. And the A group who benefited most from the globalization process enjoyed the highest growth rate in income. They are the people from the newly industrializing countries in Asia, such as China, India, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. The D group here consists of people in sub-Saharan African countries with the lowest level of income, as well as very low economic growth rate. In conclusion, globalization during this period has resulted in deterioration of income distribution globally. In the process, the obvious winners are A and C groups, and the losers are B and D groups. This graph shows the long-term trend in global income inequality during the 200-year period from 1820 to 2020. The next graph shows the breakdown of inequality into the between country inequality and the within country inequality. Inequality is measured by the ratio of top 10% income share divided by bottom 50% income share, which is often called tile index. These data are compiled by the World Inequality Lab, organized by Thomas Piketty, French economist, and his friends. From these two graphs, we can draw some important implication for the cause of changes in global income inequality during this period from 1820 to 1900. Global income inequality increased steadily during this period. The reason for this deterioration in income inequality was due to the fact that the income gap between the countries who benefited from Industrial Revolution and the rest of the world increased significantly. From this graph, we can also draw another implication that global income inequality remained steady during the period from 1900 to 1960, because the deterioration in the between country inequality was offset by the improvement in the within country inequality due to the introduction of various social welfare programs in the developed countries. Furthermore, the deterioration in global income inequality during the period from 1960 to 1980 was largely due to the rapid increase in the between country inequality. Finally, the improvements in global income inequality since 1980 has been a direct result of the drastic improvement in the between country inequality due to the rapid economic growth in China and other industrializing Asian countries. Based on these statistical evidences, we can draw the following conclusions. First, the impact of technological progress on income distribution was neutral during the first and second industrial revolutions, but it became negative during the third and the fourth
4차
industrial
산업혁명에서는
revolutions.
이것이 부정적
The
영향으로
reason for this
전개되었습니다.
difference is
이런
related to
차이가
the fact
일어나는
that the pace
바로
of the
기술
technological
증거의
progress
속도가
was much more rapid
훨씬
in the
빨라서
latter case,
후자의 경우에
resulting in
기술 증거가
deterioration
훨씬 빨라서
in
그렇게
wage
되기
differentials
때문입니다.
and income
그래서
inequality.
일단
However,
소득
as the
불평등이
technological
심화된
progress
것이죠.
spreads to
하지만
many
경제
segments of the
기술
economy,
발전이
its
경제 여러
impact on
부분을
income distribution
확산되면서
becomes
소득 분배에
neutral.
미친 영향이 중립적입니다.
Second, in order to
두 번째,
maximize the positive
저희가
impact
이러한
of economic
경제
growth on
성장이
income
소득 분배에
distribution,
미치는 긍정적
we should
영향을 극대화하기
devise
위해서는
policies so that
우리가
domestically
정책을
most
강구해야
sectors
되는데요.
should get the
국내적으로는
benefits
더
from
많은 부분이
technological
기술 증거를
progress,
혜택을 받을 수
and
있도록 하는
internationally
정책, 그리고
more
국제적으로는
countries
더 많은
should
국가가
participate
국제적 노동
in the
분업을
globalization
통해서 세계화
process
과정에
through the
효율적으로
international
참여할 수 있도록 하는 정책,
division of
이런 두
labor
가지 방향의
mechanism.
정책이 강구돼야
The
되겠습니다.
third,
세 번째,
income distribution can be
소득
improved
분배라는
through the
것은
construction of the social
사회
safety net,
안전망을 구축하고
as well as the
또
strengthening the income
공공
redistribution
재정으로 소득
function
재분배를
of
그런
public
기능을
finance.
강화함으로써
This is
개선될 수
clearly
있습니다.
evidenced
이것은
by the
분명히
fact
알
that
수 있는
income
사례가
distribution
있는데요.
in
바로
developed countries
선진국의 소득 분배가
improved during the period of
1920년에서
1920 to
1980년
1980,
사이에 개선되었기
but has
때문입니다.
deteriorated
하지만
since
1980년 이후
1980.
악화되었던 것이죠. 이것이 이러한 사회 안전망 구축과 공공 재정의
Now let's turn to our attention to the Korean situation.
한국의 상황을 제가 살펴보겠습니다.
The so-called
이른바
Han River
한강의
miracle
기적은 사실
is characterized by the high economic growth
높은
with a
경제
relatively
성장과
equal
그리고
distribution of
상대적으로
income,
균등한 소득 분배를
in short,
통해서
growth
이른바
with equity.
성평성을 동반한
There are three
성장의
reasons
소득
for
분배를
growth with
가능했던
equity in
것입니다.
Korea.
한국의 형평성
The first,
성장이 가능한
the
이유가
Lee
세
Seung-man
가지입니다.
government
첫
had
번째,
a major
이승만
land
정부에서는
reform in 1949 and 1950,
1940년과 56년
which set the basis for rather
경제적인 농지 개혁을
equal
단행했기
distribution of
때문입니다.
wealth
이것이 한국
in
부의
Korea.
평등한 분배를 위한 토대를
Second,
마련했습니다.
During the early
둘째,
period of economic
경제
development in
발전
the
초기
50s and 60s,
1950년대와
Korea
1960년대에서
experienced rapid
한국은
accumulation of
급격한
human capital due to the
인적
very
자본
high
축적을
fervor for
그래서
children's education
한국
by
부모의
Korean
자녀교육에 대한
parents,
극도였던 열정,
because
그뿐입니다.
education was
왜냐하면
regarded as a
교육은
ladder
사회적
for
지위
ascending
상승의 사다리로
social
여겨졌기
status.
때문입니다.
Third,
세 번째,
the Park Chung-hee
박정희
government
정권에서는
adopted an outward-looking
외환
development
발전 전략을
strategy from the early
채택했습니다. 이것이
1960s,
1960년대
which had
초반이었는데요.
resulted in
이것으로
high
인해서
economic
높은
growth
경제 성장과
and
또
drastic
고용
improvements
기회 및
in
실질 임금의
employment
급격한
opportunities
개선이
and rapid
이루어졌습니다.
increase
이로
in
인해서
real wages.
실질적인 임금이 증가하면서 경제 성장이 가능했던 것이죠.
Professor Simon Kuznets, who received the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1971 for developing the concept of GNP, proposed a hypothesis that as the economy develops, market forces first increase, then decrease economic inequality. However, I disputed his hypothesis in my PhD dissertation in 1974 by using the empirical evidence from the Korean experience in 1960s, which achieved both high economic growth and improvements in income distribution, as explained earlier. Professor Kuznets derived a somewhat biased conclusion because he utilized data from Latin America, which adopted inward-looking import substitution development strategy. This graph shows the trend in income distribution in Korea from 1980 to 2020, as compiled by the World Inequality Lab. It shows a steady deterioration in income distribution throughout the period. The development of heavy chemical industry policy since 1970s has resulted in upgrading of industrial structure, but rising wages and income differentials. Particularly the currency crisis in late 1997 has resulted in conservative management practice for financial institutions as well as conglomerates, which in turn resulted in low economic growth. Furthermore, productivity difference between the conglomerates and small and medium enterprises has widened, which also aggravated the wage and income inequality. This table shows. I should go one more.
제가
Okay.
한 가지만 더 말씀을 드리는
This
것이
table shows
이
international
표에서는요.
comparison of
일단,
Gini ratios for
진위
market
개수,
income
시장
and
소득과
disposable
가처분
income.
소득에 대한 진위 개수의
Korea
국제
ranks
비교를
reasonably
보여주고
well
있는데요.
internationally
한국은 시장 소득
in terms
진위
of the
비율
market
개수
income Gini
측면에서
ratio,
국제적으로 상당히 좋은
but
평가를 받고
Korea
있습니다.
ranking
하지만
falls
한국의
behind
순위를 보시면
significantly if compared in terms of disposable
가처분
income.
소득 면에서 보면 크게
This
차이가
means
있습니다.
that the
이 말은
income
한국이
redistribution
다른 선진국에 비해서
function
정부
of the
재정의
government
소득 제공의
finance
기능이 약하다,
is
소득이
relatively
약하다는
weak
것을
in Korea as
의미합니다.
compared to other developed countries. Now let's examine the impact of
그러면
COVID-19.
코로나가 어떤 영향을
First of all,
보여주는지
COVID-19 has
우선
disturbed
코로나는
the world supply
전
chain
세계 공급망을
and thus has
불안시켰고,
resulted in slowdown of
그렇게
economic
그런 부분에서 전
activities
세계적으로 경제
globally.
활동을 둔화시키는 결과를
Furthermore,
가져왔습니다.
the low-skilled
더욱이
workers
코로나의
have
부정적
suffered
영향으로
more
인해서
from the negative
저수면
impacts of
노동자들이
COVID-19,
더 많은 피해를
and
입게
thus
되었습니다.
income inequality and
소득
poverty
불평,
has
불평등과
increased
빈곤은 더
significantly.
크게 악화 증가되었다고 볼 수 있습니다.
According to IMF,
IMF에 따르면
the world
세계
economy registered negative growth
경제는
rate of minus 3.1% in
마이너스
2020,
3.1%의
but recovered to
성장률을
positive
기록했습니다.
6.1%
하지만
in
2021년에
2021.
1.1%로 다시
However,
회복되었습니다.
due to the
그러나
Omicron
오미크론
and
변이와
Russian invasion of
러시아의
Ukraine,
우크라이나
the
침공으로
economic
인해서
prospects for 2022 are
2022년
very
경제
grim.
전망은 굉장히 어둡습니다.
As you can see in
여러분이
this
보시는
graph,
것처럼
with the launching of MDGs in 2000
MDG를
and
2000년에
SDGs
제가
in
출범했고
2015, we had a very significant improvements on poverty
빈곤
reduction.
감소에 상당한 개선이
But the
있었다고
situation was
하지만
reversed due to
코로나
the
사태로 인한
COVID-19,
상황이
because the
역전되고
poorest
후퇴하고
in each country suffered
각국의
most
최빈곤층이
from
사실
COVID-19.
코로나로 인해서 가장 큰 피해를 입었기 때문입니다.
The 2022 World Development Report by the World Bank has concluded that the death of COVID-19 has surpassed Great Depression, as you can see in this graph.
대공황의 어떤
The last one is
심각성을 넘어섰다고
COVID-19,
보여주고
and you can
있습니다.
see
지금
the
보시는 것처럼 코로나와
Great Depression.
그리고 대공황 사이에서의
COVID-19 has resulted in low economic growth rate for developing countries, and as a result,
저임금
the between country inequality has retreated to the level of early 2010. Also, in the within country inequality has also deteriorated.
2010년 초반 수준으로 후퇴된 것입니다. 뿐만 아니라 국가 내 불평등도
This
악화되었습니다.
chart shows the rate of decline in income by income groups in Korea during the year 2020. The lowest 20% income group suffered the highest fall of minus 17.1%, while the highest 20% income group experienced only 1.5% decline in income
이 기간 동안 두 번째로 낮은
this
소득
period.
그룹은 5.6%, 상위 20% 소득 그룹은 1.5%로
Now let's
감소했습니다.
talk about the
두 번째로 높은
strategies
소득
for
그룹이
growth
2.7%
with
감소를
equity.
경험했죠. 자,
This is the
그렇다면
cover
이제,
of my book in Korean
형평성을
again,
동반한 성장에 대한
titled
전략을
Welfarenomics:
말씀드리겠습니다.
Road to
웰페어노믹스는
Sustainable
이것은
Capitalism
일단
and Welfare
지속
State,
가능한
which was
자본주의와
published in
복지국가에
2013.
기려는 부제를 가지고 있습니다.
In this book,
2014년
I
한국
tried to
출간이었는데요.
develop a new
해당
set of
저서에서 저는
paradigms
새로운
for growth
패러다임을
with
개발하려고
equity, which
시도했습니다.
I will
이것이
explain
바로
at the
형평성을
end.
동반한 성장인데요. 이 부분에 대해서는 제가 조금 후에 다시 설명을 드리겠습니다.
The first policy option for growth with
그래서
equity
공평한 성장,
is the deregulation
형평성 동반
measures
성장의
for
첫 번째
creating
정책 옵션은
more jobs.
보다 많은 일자리를
Based on
만드는
my
국제
experience
원칙입니다.
in legislating
봤을 때
the Special Act on Deregulation for
그래서 기업
Business
활동에
Sector
관한 규제
in
완화의
July
특별법을
1993, I can draw three
그것을
reasons for
바탕으로 해서
difficulties
왜
in
규제 완화가
deregulation.
어려운지 세
The
가지를
first,
꼽고 싶습니다.
civil
첫
servants
번째,
who benefit most from
규제
regulations
가장 많이
may
받는
not
공무원이
cooperate
규제
in the
완화
deregulation
과정에서
process.
협조하지 않을 수 있다는
Second,
것입니다. 둘째,
the majority who benefit from the
규제
deregulation
완화로 해서 이득을
tends to
보는
remain silent, while the minority who loses something as a result of deregulation tends to speak out very loudly. Third, the politicians who should be on the side of the majority often support the minority with a loud
소수를
voice.
지지하면서 굉장히 큰 목소리를 내고 있다는 것입니다.
Here I just said some measures I recommended for deregulation reforms, such as e-welfare, but I will skip it to
제가
save
중요한
time.
부분들을
Okay.
제가 놓았는데요. 번거로운 규제를 없애야 된다는 것이었는데
Education
이것보다,
is a
좀
very important channel for growth with equity. The Harvard professor Claudia Goldin and Lawrence Katz argue in their book titled The Race Between Education and Technology as follows. When education lags behind in the race with the technology, economic growth slows down and inequality rises. But when education races ahead of technology, we have both growth and equality. The Han River miracle is the result of the rapid accumulation of human capital due to the high educational fervor of the Korean parents. In the process, Korea achieved both high economic growth and income equality. However, economic growth has slowed down and income inequality has risen since 1990 because the rigid Korean educational system, which cannot keep pace with rapid technological progress. The fourth reform agenda in education is to achieve autonomy in management for elementary and secondary schools. For this purpose, the most important reform agenda is to train teachers as a teacherpreneurs, which plays a double role of a teacher and entrepreneur. The second reform agenda in education is how to improve university entrance system and the teaching method in universities. The IMD survey shows Korea ranks 48th among 64 countries in terms of business sector's content with the university graduates. The reason for discontents are lack of creativity, 35%, deficient character, 23%.
충분한 어떤 캐릭터의 부족, 이 23%로 나뉘어져 있습니다.
The labor reform is the third one I want to mention. It's urgently needed to implement flex security strategies as practiced in Denmark and other Nordic countries. The World Economic Forum ranks Korea 130th in labor management relations and 97th in labor market flexibility among 141 countries. Top agenda in labor reform is how to formulate flex security strategy and implement it in the Korean context. The issue here is to revise labor laws to make the labor market more flexible and at the same time devise a more comprehensive social safety net as a package. The tripartite committee by labor management government should be the main channel for this task.
메인 윈도우 즉 창구가 되어야 될 것입니다.
To go for. Now we talk about the pension reform. In the current Korean situation of the rapid aging and low fertility, the pension reform is the very urgent but politically sensitive issue. There are three major issues in public pensions. First, pensions for civil servants and military personnel clearly incur a huge loss. Already incur a huge loss, becoming a heavy burden in public finance. And the pension for teachers is following the exactly same path. The second, National Pension Fund, which has a huge reserve at the present time, is projected to be zero in 2055 if no reform measure is undertaken. Third, poverty rate for the aged in Korea is 40.4%, 3 times higher than the OECD average of 13.1%. The pension reform is difficult because we have to satisfy two conflicting objectives, namely to provide adequate income for the aged after retirement and maintain the sustainability of pension
또 연관
finance.
재정은 지속 가능성
As the original architect of the national pension in 1986, I made 5 reform proposals recently, but due to the time limit, I will skip it. Okay.
그것을 기반해서 제가 제안하고 싶은 내용이 있습니다만 시간이
The fifth agenda for growth with equity is innovative welfare through social finance. Promoting social enterprises, entrepreneurs through social finance market is a very effective strategy for growth with equity. Social finance market is well developed in UK and US, where the tradition of the financial institution is rather strong. The government plays an active role in promoting social finance market in UK, while the private sector in the Wall Street and Silicon Valley play a leading role in the United States. However, the social finance market in Korea remains at an early stage of development. In my view, Korea needs to follow UK strategy of promoting social enterprises and entrepreneurs through social finance market. Again, due to the time limit, I'm not going to skip the details. Okay?
여기에 대한 방법론이 있지만 이 세부 사항은 제가 넘어가겠습니다.
The sixth policy option for growth with equity is e-welfare, utilizing ICT. The international community has recently showed a keen interest in utilizing ICT in the field of social development and social welfare. In May last year, ICSW and the KNCSW organized international conference on the use of ICT in the social welfare sector, and the result is published recently by the Routledge Publishing Company.
이와 관련된 부분에 대해서 내용을 발표한 바 있는데요.
Recently, the Korea KNCSW, I led a study team to Denmark and Finland, and made a set of recommendation to Korean government. But again, I will skip the details. Okay. It's the last item. Finally, I'd like to propose a new policy framework for growth with equity titled Welfarenomics. The concept of Welfarenomics consists of the following 2 components. First, modify the neoliberal model of the market economy in 3 ways in order to realize the win-win capitalism. First, strengthen the strategy formulating function of government. Second, increase the social value of business activities. Third, build an ecosystem for symbiotic development through activation of NGO activities. Second, modify the model of the European welfare state in 3 ways in order to realize the sustainable welfare state. First, build the foundation for workfare. 2, create habitat for innovative welfare. 3, apply management principle for efficient welfare. Okay, this is just summary of what I just said. The last page. The concept of welfarenomics has the following 3 characteristics. First, it is a strategy for maintaining economic vitality and meeting growing welfare demands at the same time. Second, it is an opportunity for reaching a consensus between the right and the left instead of ideological conflict in the discussion of economy and social issues. So it is a socially integrative approach, emphasizing harmony rather than conflict. Thank you very much.